LA Metro Magazine podcast is here to bring you the entertaining, informative, and inspiring stories of the people who live, work, and play in the greater Lewiston Auburn, Maine area. I'm your host, Colby Michaud. In this episode, we continue our conversation with Lewiston Police Department's Joe Philippon. The detective and I jump around many topics, including community engagement, why he chooses to stay in Lewiston, and cultural division, what Joe coins the Two Lewistons. Plus, some dialogue on a diverse fleet of police vehicles and the correlation between hockey goaltending and mindfulness. We pick up the discussion on a question about out-of-state specialized training. This is LA Metro Magazine Podcast, Episode 14. Speaking of training,
yes,
you're involved with Strive. Is that right? Joe, tell us, what does Strive stand for?
Strive, strategic, tactical, resilient interdiction to counter violent extremism.
Yeah, that was the critical situational sort of like anti-terrorism type of stuff like that.
Yeah, it was it was a teaching. I was part of a program through FEMA. And I got connected with a law enforcement training company based out of Richmond, Virginia. And it was a really cool experience. One of the things that I know that people sometimes have issues with, but getting out of the state, getting away from here, and being able to see other wherever it is and experience things differently matters. And for me, going down to Richmond, Virginia, and being exposed to law enforcement officers from all four corners in the middle of the country, this amount of perspective, stuff that you can learn from is huge. It's absolutely huge. You know, we as a community should want to send anybody and everybody we have working for us to have those opportunities to get out and engage with people outside of the bubble. You just never know what you're going to pick up. And in particular with this program, I got to see a very proactive side of law enforcement, a side that was very much so driven by relying on community engagement in particular, and the Strive program itself was really focused on community engagement. Going back to kind of what we were talking earlier, like cops can't be everywhere, and we can't be everything and everyone to everyone. So a lot of Strive, if we want to counter or stop the likelihood or prevent the likelihood of a violent extremist event happening in your community, but really, when we're talking about this, I would just say that we're really talking about anything. It doesn't have to be violent extremism. It's about people working together, communicating, talking with each other, saying, hey, something isn't right, hearing that, and then maybe sitting down with them or getting the people you need to and being like, okay, how do we address this? How do we fix this? So things don't escalate. There's no, one of the things about that program that we were teaching is like random acts of violence, before they're not random. Before that, somebody got angry and frustrated. Yeah, the manifestation of the crime is appear random, but like you said, they get mad.
So much before that gets involved, that led to that, and if you can intervene early, then you can prevent a lot.
Oh yes, I do.
So a lot of that, it sounds like that training is just about being proactive.
It's about being proactive. It's about building partnerships, building bridges. Outreaching to communities that you're not outreaching to, forming relationship with people in the community that maybe you're not, establishing those things. Because unfortunately what happens is we're too reactionary, and those relationships start happening afterwards. Maybe in this case when we're doing the investigation, and then going forward when we start talking about rebuilding a community or fixing or addressing what already happened. But to be preventative, you need to have those well in advance established before there was ever an issue. And unfortunately, if there is an issue, it's those relationships and those bonds that are going to help you to recover from that, to be resilient as an individual and as a community. It's a great program because it really solidified the importance of community relations, getting out there and doing community solving. Not me as a police lecturing you what you need to do to be safe, but me engaging with you and us talking about safety, talking about the issues in your neighborhood, also saying, well, what do you think we should be doing? What maybe works for you guys? And if that works, then that works. And if it doesn't work, then maybe us taking the time to explain why we can or whatnot. Is that education? Is those discussions that matter? And through that, you're gonna have partnerships. You develop trust, and trust is crucial. And when people trust each other, they're gonna talk to you. One of the things that I've always seen is people say, "Oh, I had this bad feeling." I've had this bad feeling, but yet there I went. I still went around that corner, and now, officer, here I am lying on the ground bleeding. Well, when you have good relationships and stuff like that established, hopefully, what happens is when people start getting that inclination that they maybe can't even really explain, but instead of just keeping it to themselves, they speak up and they say something. And then maybe somebody else who may be more of a subject matter expert or has access to more information can now look into it. And hopefully it is nothing. But if it is something, you're absolutely right. Better address it before as opposed to react to the afterwards of it. And in terms of healing, that's where resiliency is going to be, is having those partnerships. No community is going to move forward if you still remain divided. And here, speaking locally in Lewiston, we do have our issues here. There are still very much so Two Lewistons in this community. When you look back, in particular with COVID and how it's affected Lewiston in particular, back in June, around June, July, when we started seeing a significant number of cases here in Androscoggin County, what we also realized that the majority of those cases were right here locally in Lewiston and affecting our immigrant refugee population. Mm-hmm. And yet, interestingly, there wasn't not a lot, even though we had a lot of community spread going on, it wasn't spreading to the larger community. So maybe in some ways that worked out for us during COVID-19, but, generally speaking, I don't think that is actually an ideal thing to have happen here. And it just goes to show that, when I think about that, I think that
it kind of illustrates the sort of the division when you're talking about the Two Lewistons.
The Two Lewistons.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing what I had the benefit of doing for community outreach the last 7 years, would I have interacted with immigrant refugees within our community? Yeah, sure, of course, but not much. And if I was doing maybe something else, maybe hardly ever or at all. We got to change that. And 20 years later, here we are, and we're still talking about this, and people from the community, from those communities, are still saying, we're not being heard, you're not listening to us, and you're not helping us. One of the saddest things that one of the imams had said during a meeting that we had with the CDC, and response was like, we feel like you guys abandoned us. You guys have left us alone, forgotten us. And to me, that hurt to hear. I can't imagine what it must feel like to say that about your family, about your friends, about your neighbors. We got to do better. We have to do much better, and hopefully there's progress there. There's work going on through the City Spirit Initiative and other programs happening locally, but at some point, that the people in this community that think that if we wait it out long enough that they're just going to go away, it's not realistic. They're here, and they're friends with my oldest son, and they're here. And some of the best friends and best supporters that I've ever had in myself professionally and personally. So I think it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. And in order for us to solve that or address those issues, we have to accept the fact that it is a reality.
Yeah, you've been, especially recently, you've been recognized in a few different ways for your commitment and leadership to this community. Actually, in LA Metro Magazine, the last issue, you were on the cover.
Yeah.
Very cool. You had your portrait taken by the very talented Jose Leiva, longtime Lewiston Auburn photographer. And more recently, just a few weeks ago, or actually less than that now, just a couple weeks ago, you were recognized by Uplift LA as the awardee for the Emerging Leaders category for the 40 under 40 celebration. And so it's pretty clear that, and you're recently promoted to detective. It's pretty clear your commitment to this community. So my question is, why do you choose to stay?
Well, first, before answering why I choose to stay, I think it's important. I have to point out the fact that the reason why I've been successful is because of the number of people that I've been able to meet with and work with in this community, who really have either supported me or I've been able to support. I'm never, an idea is only going to be an idea, and a lot of stuff that I've been able to be part of would only remain ideas if I wasn't able to find the right people who are just as driven, even many ways more so driven than I am to address these issues. So I've just been very lucky in the last 7 years in particular to meet, to engage with, to network with some really good, kind-hearted people who are so passionate, who care so much, who want to do so much for this community. And so that's one reason why I attribute my success is for sure is the support that I've had. And why I choose to live here, it's my hometown. This is where I've been all but a month of my life. I've been in Lewiston, Maine, and I think it's important that while we live here, or while I work for the city, that I remain living here in this community, that I remain an advocate for this community. The community's not going to get better by sitting on the bench. Everybody needs to roll up the sleeves and get out there. One of the things they did a long time ago for the chamber was a presentation on the perception of crime versus the reality of crime in Lewiston. And I stand by that message. People perceive us for being a lot worse than what we really are. Doesn't mean that we don't have issues, but it's not as bad as people like to make it out. We can deliver that message. I can deliver that message. You can deliver that message. Missy Parker at Economic Development can deliver that message. We can do that. But it needs to be everybody else. When you look, if the community as a whole doesn't feel that way, then it's just not real, whether it is real or not. And if we want this community to succeed or be better, the whole community just has to buy into this. And I'll give you an example. When I look at the community police academy that we do at the police department, it used to be called the Citizens Police Academy. That program is all about sharing perspective, right? And bring in all these people, and we talk about what it's like to be a cop and why we do what it is that we do. Well, part of that's also listening to them and letting them ask us questions, and we do all that, so sure. But what I always tell the class is that one of the reasons why this program is the most beneficial is that I can't talk to everybody, and I don't have the time, or I'm never going to be able to explain every little thing to everybody. When I have a class of 25 people who are willing to commit 10 weeks, 1 day a week, coming in for 2 hours, to listen to us, I told them what I'm really hoping to do is that you'll take the time. You already agreed to take the time because you're here to listen, to hear what we're saying, and that when you go back out to wherever it is you work, your social circle, whatever it is outside of this classroom, but you're at work tomorrow and something happens, whether it be locally, across the country, whatever has you, and it's about law enforcement, and people are talking about unrealistically there, but what police can or can't do, or what they should have done or what they shouldn't, that you could sit there and be like, well, actually, this is what I learned. This is why cops do this. Or this is how they approach it and why they approach it that way. And I said, if I can get you guys to a point where you maybe feel comfortable when that moment presents itself, that's a win, because that's a way of having more community advocacy. And so in that little example, that's how I attribute how this community is going to succeed, is by having more people have buy-in, because individual elected officials, police officers, we can only go out there so much, but until everybody is willing to tout that message or believe in that message and then tout it, we're always going to be handicapped by ourselves.
So I want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Find out, what do you like to do for fun?
You know, one of the things I
When you're not wearing the uniform.
when I'm not wearing a uniform, yeah, no, playing hockey.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's probably, I'm able to play about 1 to 2 times a week, and it's a great escape because while you're playing, you have to focus. I'm a goalie,
Really?
so you really need to focus on what you're doing, and when you don't, you know, or everybody knows when you're not focused.
Yeah, the pucks seem to go by easier, right?
Yes. No, so that's always been a good escape for me. I've always enjoyed it. It's just fun.
Where do you play?
In Auburn at Norway.
Oh, cool.
For the most part, and what I like about it is just one skate is really with people that I don't ever see outside of hockey. So it's not about me being a cop. It's not about anything. It's just about this is the game. We gotta play, and we're gonna win. And it's just very simple. So I enjoyed that. Cooking. Another thing that when you're doing it, you have to focus on, and if you don't, then everybody you're trying to feed is going to notice, maybe be poisoned, who knows. But either which way, I've always liked that, cooking and playing hockey. I got a young one at home, Jackson. He's going to be 4 actually this coming weekend, and it's just been a fun summer with him, going out to the beaches and just exploring the woods and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I really look forward to Saturday because I'm just one of those. Well, I'm a morning person now, so I'm up ready to go, try and get the bed made by 8:00, and I want to be out the door and onto the adventure, and we go. I don't do sitting at home well.
With all this go that you have, I mean, with your job, and then it sounds like with your little one, it sounds like you don't have a lot of time, downtime. But I think what kind of you pointed out with hockey, you mentioned that it takes a lot of focus.
Yeah.
Especially to be a goalie. That in itself, I believe, is a form of meditation.
I agree with you.
And so maybe that's one of the reasons you actually like it, is because it's a way to sort of give your mind a break from all of this stimulation that's constantly coming at you.
Yeah, anybody knows me knows that I'm a thinker.
Yeah.
I'm an obsessor. I plan to have a plan, to have a plan, to have a plan.
Do you overthink? Do you overanalyze?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think that can be challenging when you do that is, especially doing, whether it be the job or just being an individual, is, at some point you have to be decisive, but yeah, no, I've always been, a processor, and liking to think on things.
Yeah.
For sure. We just got done the experience of helping my oldest son buy a car, and I was showing him what I do to prepare for buying a car, which I'm pretty sure was a lot more than what he was expecting. But if you don't do the legwork beforehand, you're not prepared. And if you're not prepared, in terms of buying a car, you can really get something that you don't want or get a bad deal. But if you're not prepared, generally speaking, you're probably going to be very disappointed with the outcome of whatever it is that you're working for or working towards.
Yeah, that's why we practice, right? That's why we train, and with practice comes confidence. And so when you're on the field or you're on the ice, you feel like you're ready for any kind of situation that come at you.
Goaltending is great. I think one thing about it is, and maybe you are onto something, and that that is my.
Do you
my
meditate
getaway.
Traditionally?
No, I don't think so. No.
Like you sit down and intentionally take the 20 minutes, 30 minutes to do that. No, yeah.
No.
So.
No. Well, I think you learn things.
You definitely do.
As you get old. So one thing that maybe would surprise a lot of people is I've generally always, or for the most part, definitely when I was younger, I was very much an introvert and very shy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And
I was always a kid in the class that never... when you're reading a textbook, and then everyone's taking turns, and you were afraid that teacher was going to call on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, gave me bad anxiety. Yeah. But now I think, I don't want to cut you off, but for me, it was going, at 20 years old, starting a business. You kind of have to fake it and get out there. You got to put yourself out. You want to make a living. You got to force yourself to step out of the comfort zone.
Fake it till you make it.
And then you do make it.
Yeah.
And then it's not fake anymore.
No.
Apparently.
It's very...
Or it's not I can't perceive whether it's fake anymore, but to me, I don't feel...
I think you adapt.
You change.
No, I agree. I had to do that. I was a very yes, sir, no, sir, take you at your word, and in particular, taking everybody at their word. It's not necessarily a good trait to have as a police officer.
Right, no, especially in your profession.
And when I realized early on, there was this call where prior to this one call, I had interacted with this family, and I thought I had a really good rapport and interaction with them. Everything was good, and then something came up, several months later, where I had to go back there and follow up on them. The person wound up having a warrant for their arrest. Or one of the people so I'm like, oh no, I'll go over there. They'd be cool. I had this good, I got this good rapport. It won't be an issue. Go over there, and they were lying and saying that it wasn't there. And of course, I was like, okay, well, they're not there. And of course, this older senior guy that was with me goes, hey, no. He steps in, takes over, and of course, the guy was there and hiding, and there's a lot of basic, real, normal human. But for me, what I took out of that is like, Joe, if you're gonna be successful in this job, you can't take everything at face value. Like, you can't believe everybody. If they're gonna say that, fine, but then you need to be able to prove that, or they need to be able to prove that to you. And if you're not willing to dig deeper in it, you're gonna be a horrible cop. You're gonna be a horrible investigator, which was not easy for me to do. And I guess growing up around the theater with my parents, what I just really kind of started to learn is that I need to role play. This may not be who I am right now, but I need to at least play this role. And I did that. And it was hard, and it was awkward, and it was intentional for a long time, kind of what you were talking about. But then you adapt. The idea of doing this even 10 years ago, probably sitting down with you would still have been a very, no way.
Yeah.
Whereas, when you asked me, there was no reservations or going to talk to a crowd or individuals that I didn't know and strike up a random conversation. No way would I have done that 20 years ago. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Obviously, I don't public speak, and I wouldn't say I'm particularly a good public speaker, but if I had to do it today versus 15 years ago, I couldn't even fathom it 15 years ago.
Right.
But now I just I'll be nervous.
Yeah.
But I can do it.
Absolutely.
It's transparent, tasteless, odorless, and most essential for life. I'm talking about water, of course. Hi, I'm Nicole, Association Director of Health, Wellness, and Fitness at the YMCA of Auburn Lewiston, here to talk about the importance of H2O. Our bodies depend on water to survive. Every cell, tissue, and organ in your body needs to work properly to maintain temperature, remove waste, and lubricate your joints. It's needed for overall good health. We all require different hydration levels. The amount of water that one should be drinking is dependent on their activity and overall health. It is recommended that the average person drinks 6 to 8 glasses each day. Other excellent forms of hydration can be found in certain fruits and vegetables. Good examples include berries, apples, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Some caffeinated beverages can contribute to hydration but should be limited. Sports drinks are helpful if you're working out or planning long periods of intense physical exertion. To help you remember to hydrate, keep a bottle with you during the day. To keep down the cost, carry a reusable water bottle with you. If you find water too boring, try adding lemon or lime to your drink. In summary, remember to always hydrate before, during, and after a workout, whether home, outside, or here at the YMCA.
You talked a lot about throughout this conversation about perception in different ways, and maybe it's the whole fake it till you make it. It's really just maybe we aren't actually who we think we are. It's just how we perceive ourselves. Yeah. And so if we look at ourselves in the mirror a little bit differently, you can actually fundamentally influence your DNA.
Yeah.
And I think that probably just comes with time.
Absolutely.
It comes with life experience, and every interaction, especially as a police officer. I mean, every interaction you have on the street, you learn something about yourself.
For sure.
Even if you don't know it in the moment.
Yeah, and
it's all
one of the things that used to bug, me digressing a little bit, but when I was younger, or when I had first started working, everybody, growing up, especially locally, everybody remembers you. Oh, you played soccer, you played hockey, you went to St. Thomas, whatever. But once when you become a police officer, and all of a sudden all that's erased, and that becomes the only thing that you're identified by.
Yeah, your identity changes. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things, and I remember back when I was 21, 22, 23, whatever, just started on, that, you go out now and everybody wants to come to you and talk to you about what it's like to be a cop, right? Yeah. It's the most annoying conversation, because you don't want to do it all the time. And, I was definitely many times very dismissive about those questions and moved on or, escaped from that conversation. But when I look back at that, I always regret it, and it's, because what I wasn't realizing back then that I understand now is that I may not have cared for the questions of what's the funniest thing you've ever seen, all those things, but in that, the underlying thing was there's a genuine curiosity about what it is that you do, or what it is that police officers do, and what do you experience. And what they were essentially doing, all of these individuals, were they're giving me a microphone or an opportunity to educate them. Unfortunately, every single time they did that, or too many times when they did that, I pushed the mic away. And then when you look at the issues that we're having today, that plays a role in it. When people don't understand, when you don't take the time to educate, when you don't take the time to have a conversation or explain things, it's a missed opportunity. And there's a lot of reasons why we're at where we're at right now, and I'm not saying that this would be one all by all, but the reality is that if we as law enforcement spent more time talking with people and explaining stuff, that would probably have mitigated a lot of tension and animosity that we see today, because there's just a lot of misunderstanding about what it is that we can and can't do. And so for me, I look at it as, I think it's important for us to step out of our comfort zones maybe, or not be so shy, because if you're not going to speak up and say something, then nobody's going to hear you.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the comfort zone is every time you take a step outside of it, it gets bigger.
It does. It does.
So you can never escape that. You just always keep pushing the envelope, and I think that's one of the ways you can. That's one of the ways that keeps us going.
Absolutely.
That's why we keep striving for greatness. I mean, that's just inherent in every human.
Definitely.
But I think it's also interesting that you mentioned that you were an introvert before.
Yeah.
And now you're eager to pick up the mic.
Yeah.
That's pretty profound change.
It is. Well, you just realize is that if you, and I think maybe this could be a part of the salesman in me or what, but I'm not going to see. I have my opinions on everything. But I'm not going to. But if I want to be part of creating a change locally or whatnot, I'm not going to be part of it if I'm not willing to speak up, and if I'm not willing to go out there and engage with somebody, especially somebody I don't know, and explain and talk about why it is. Because if I can't do that, then the reality is whatever it is that I care about is just going to remain with me, or it's not going to get out there. So if you really care about the community, the various needs, you have to speak up and say something, because there's not enough people that are. And hopefully, when there's more voices to the table, well, many more than mine, and even better voices than me for sure, are out there speaking, I think that that starts that process towards resiliency that we all need in our respective communities, but that we definitely need here. So can't get anything if you don't ask for it. Maybe that's also why I'm not opposed to fundraising.
Yeah. You still drive a patrol car?
No, now we drive the old patrol cars that are painted all black. That's what we drive out back in CID. But they're a lot more spacious. You don't have the cage in there. You don't have all the...
What do you mean the old cars? Those are like the... are they like real old?
Yeah, so...
like the Ford Crown Vic?
No.
Oh, okay.
So our patrol cars that you see, the marked ones, they pretty much we do a 3-year life cycle on them, and then after they're rotated out after their 3rd year, they go back to being all painted black, take the stickers off, and those are usually the cars that we get out back in CID, which is the Criminal Investigation Division.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we drive. So I got one, and that's what we just bomb around in. But they take everything out with it. So, in our cars, we don't have the divider and the bars or, the shotguns. Or
you still have the holder for your computer, your laptop?
No, we don't even have that. No, I mean, it is spacious.
Nice.
It is nice.
It's just like a regular
It's just like
Charger?
a regular car. Yeah.
Oh.
I'll tell you, that's one thing. When we first started driving the old Ford Crown Vics, there's a lot of room in there, especially, like, we didn't have anything when I started. And as time went on, the cars got smaller and we just had more. And you feel like, I don't think I'm too big of a guy. I hope I'm not. If not, I need to go back to gym. But I mean, even me, I'm like, whoa, it's tight in here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, no.
What's the Lewiston has a I don't know what the specific name. You can tell me. It's like looks like a giant tank on 4 wheels.
The MRAP.
What does MRAP stand for?
Oh boy, I think it's or the ARAP. No, MRAP.
I think you're right. I think that's
MRAP.
And is it EM?
Yeah.
Could it be emergency?
No. I think it's a military term. I just don't. I can't think. Armored something vehicle. Is there the MRAP? No, I don't. I guess I don't know exactly, or it's not coming to mind what it stands for. But the difference between what we have now and what we used to have is that this one it sits taller, but it's not a tracked vehicle.
Right.
And the first one that we had was tracked, and I know it's been great. I mean, you see it out. I mean, people. So there are people who have concerns about law enforcement having it, but I mean, I find ours to be more used as a jungle gym than anything. It goes out to the movie nights or touch of trucks or birthdays, and people really like it. And it's a very nice looking vehicle with the paint job and all that. But I will say this: it really does have a very practical purpose for us on 2 fronts. One is that we have a hazardous materials response team, a hazmat team, and so one of the things that you can deal with, and I was a hazmat tech for a little while, is like while you're out, dealing with, and a lot of stuff that we went out to for calls had involved railroad cars having issues. So you can be out there in wide open areas, and if something were to become volatile, explosive, you have no cover. And your rubber suit is not going to do much for you. So the nice thing is it's a portable barricade, a portable shelter for us. Because otherwise, I tell you, when you're wearing that thing, you're not sprinting, or in your mind you're sprinting, but physically you're not going as fast as you think you're going to be going. Yeah. So it does provide protection. But also locally, there was an incident back, I think, around 1998. In town here on Webster Street, where there was a shooting involving a domestic issue, and we had officers pinned down and trapped because of this gunfire. And what we wound up having to do, the department back then had to do, was they had to commandeer work vehicles from Public Works. Like bulldozers or what, to provide cover so they could get up close so they could extract people. Which is not ideal. I mean, these vehicles, they are pretty thick and they are bulletproof, but the glass in them is still the glass, and somebody still had to sit behind that and drive to get to them. And, that's fortunately, well, that day somebody was killed, but many more people could have been injured. And what we'd made the best of what we had for resources available, or the police department back then made the best of the resources they had available to them through Public Works. But this vehicle is safety, and ultimately, hope you never in that situation again. Hopefully, you never actually really have to use it beyond bringing it to a movie night to have kids climbing it out. But I'll tell you what, if you ever find yourself pinned down, you're gonna be very grateful and happy that we have that.
Yeah. The last time I saw that vehicle was actually right in this neighborhood, or a little bit further. It was for Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
And it was last month. A boy from Sabatis named Liam, his wish was to have, he's really big into trucks and tractors, and his wish was to have a playset built in his backyard. And so Make-A-Wish did that, and they bought this, and they had to, install it. So what they did was they took Liam away for the day, went to visit his meme here in Lewiston.
Yeah.
And not just they could have just given him the playset, but no, they organized an entire parade just for him. And so they got construction dump trucks from different companies and businesses from around Lewiston. There were a few Lewiston police officers involved, and one was driving that MRAP.
Very cool.
And he got so excited when that came around the corner, lights, sirens going.
That's awesome.
And then after the parade ended, the police officers came back with the vehicle, and they gave him a tour of it, and he played with the siren and everything. He loved it. It was awesome.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, I mean, you talk about the practical piece, but that exposure is important too, especially to young people.
Made his day.
Yeah,
that's not bad, right?
Hey, maybe he'll grow up and want to be a police officer because of it.
You never know. You never know what experience you're going to drive, and absolutely, it could be.
You ever talk to Steve Wallace from the YMCA?
Yes.
Yeah, he was on the show earlier this season, and one thing that he really likes to reiterate when he's talking to people about positively influencing kids is that, and he says it better than I do, but you can positively affect the trajectory of a child's life by spending just 20 minutes a day with them.
Yeah.
And going back to the whole working as a community to benefit everybody else and to see less negative outcomes later in life. That's so important. And I think that, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but
no, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
you're right. Steve's right. Like, there's unfortunately too many kids in this community that when they go home, nobody's there going to ask them, how was your day?
Right.
Do you have homework? Did you do your homework? Right. And that
well,
matters.
You talk about the need for more, and that's a great example. I mean, there are so many kids that don't have that, and unfortunately, there's not enough people to supplement.
No. No, I'll give you an example. Our rec department, 3 people or 2.5 people. And I think, for a community of our size, we should have 25. Yeah. I mean, we need more programming, not less. We need more recreational activities. We need more low barrier sports and activities. That's one thing I think is very challenging. And Steve and Julia at Tree Street, I mean, these people are doing great work with some of our most vulnerable populations, most at-risk youth, is they're providing them opportunity, providing them access to things that maybe they wouldn't normally have. One of the things that I've always struggled with is when you look at these kids, you feel bad for them, when they're younger, but then you get older, then all of a sudden you go from feeling bad to them to saying, "Wow, you're POS," and well, they were still the same person that they were 18 years ago, and we didn't do anything, so we can't necessarily be surprised at the end result or at their trajectory. And so those early interventions, that type of support that Steve's talking about, so big, and we don't embrace that enough. We need to embrace it. We need to embrace it so much more. Recently, at a school board meeting, it was talked about access into our gymnasiums, and I think that's something that I hope that the Lewiston School Department, school committee reassesses. Is like, here the community has paid extra money on all of our schools that we've had constructed to get more amenities than the state was going to cover. So let's use them and open them up.
Yeah.
We have a lot of gym space. We have all this rec space. A lot of it is closed and inaccessible and only able to be used till 2:00 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. This is not good enough. And if we're not going to open these things up, if we're not going to have field space for kids to use, if we're not going to have programming, if we're not going to have a pool, then can we really be upset with kids for really just being kids?
Right. Yeah, they need that outlet. And they're going to get it one way or the other.
They're going to get one way or another. At least this way, it may cost us money. It may cost us money now, but it's going to cost us a lot less later. And while we're doing it now, they're in a structured environment. They're in a safe environment. They can be getting fed. They can be around positive role models like Steve, who are getting where people are checking in on them and providing whatever support and assistance they need, or just being there and giving them a comfort that they may not otherwise have. It's huge, and you can't put a price tag on that. And really, again, going back to it, if we're talking about safety, this is part of community safety.
Yeah, and maybe one of the reasons that we like the comparison of the adult to the child before, that we don't, our perception of that same person changes.
Yeah.
Over time. Why don't we take the effort now to make that shift in trajectory? And it's probably because we value a culture of we got to have it now. Yeah. We're so into that instant gratification. But if we just step back and we look and think about, maybe it comes down to selfishness and thinking this is a world that we are supposed to share.
Absolutely.
And a shared world is a better world.
Absolutely.
Do you know what the mission statement of... Here's a trivia question.
Uh-oh.
Lewiston Police Department mission statement.
See, this you're going to have to edit out. I don't know.
Let me read it to you.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Philippon, he knows the mission statement, but since you all don't, I will read it to you all. And then Joe's going to comment on it. It is the mission of the Lewiston Police Department to create an atmosphere of partnership with the community toward the common goal of protecting life and property and enhancing the overall quality of life. So a question for you, Joe, is as a police officer, how does that look in practice, both on a daily basis, but also longer term?
For those who know me, I'm going to say that it means that we need to do more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a high standard, and I'm not saying that we don't meet it, but I'm just saying that that community partnership and engagement components of our mission statement just, to me, screams that our need to just continuously to not stop, to be proactive, to be aggressive, if you will, or to always be willing to adapt and change and meet people where they're at and be willing to explore new things that we never even thought of. That's the part of the mission that really grabs me. I hope that's part of the mission that people in the community have seen that we are doing, or at the very least trying to do. It's not easy. Things don't happen as quickly as people want it to, but genuinely we are really absolutely trying to meet the needs of our community and do the things that we can, but there's a lot of reasons why things just can't happen right away. Money, for sure. Sometimes it's even just laws and privacy laws. It comes to working with service providers that get in the way or whatever have you. But we are trying. I can tell you that. But I always think there's room for us to do more, and please understand, and I hope people recognize that we generally want to partner and be out there with this community, and we do recognize that there is more for us to do. And we should never be complacent.
Well, thank you, Joe. We appreciate your humble leadership.
Well,
and the community does too.
Thank you. You're too kind.
My thanks to Joe for sharing his perspectives and ambitions with us, and for sitting with me far past the allotted time. A big shout out to the YMCA of Auburn Lewiston for sponsoring this program. You can find out more about them at alymca.org. We have many more exciting guests ahead, so make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your other shows. That way you're not missing out on future episodes when they are released. We also want to thank you for listening. You, our audience, is the most important piece of this program, and we know that these recordings are just slices of a bigger ongoing conversation that we want you to be a part of. If you have any thoughts or ideas, please let us know on social media. LA Metro Magazine is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. connect with us there. Positive vibes and well wishes from all of us at LA Metro Magazine. Until next time, I'm your host, Colby Michaud. Make sure you're being entertained, staying informed, and getting inspired.